Welcome, honored viewers. Witness the fierce, crimson-stained battlefields of the 17th century. People think old warfare was a slow, clumsy clash of massive infantry blocks and heavy, immobile guns. Commanders relied purely on brute strength and huge numbers to crush their foes in endless, tragic stalemates. Yet, one bold northern king shattered this illusion, forever rewriting the rigid rules of war. Meet Gustavus Adolphus, the fierce lion of the north, who sparked the deadly age of modern warfare. Before the 1630s, European battlegrounds suffocated under thick, dark gunpowder smoke. Armies marched across the ruined continent, leaving behind absolute devastation and deep sorrow. The Spanish and the Holy Roman Empires dominated the world with a terrifying, brutal tactic. This formation was called the Tercio, a giant, slow-moving square of humans, built for pure defense. Thousands of armored men stood shoulder to shoulder, gripping extremely long wooden pikes to form a wall. These massive pikes, extending up to 18 feet, created an impenetrable forest of deadly points. Deep within this bristling fortress of spears hid the vulnerable, slow-loading matchlock musketeers. Their weapons were incredibly heavy, requiring awkward wooden forks to hold them firmly steady. Loading a single shot meant a complex, agonizingly slow process of measuring black powder. The battlefield was practically frozen, as both sides spent hours positioning clumsy formations. Artillery of this era was equally static, consisting of massive bronze beasts sunk deep in mud. Once placed on the field, these gigantic cannons were rarely moved, firing a few deafening rounds. According to historical records, a typical siege could last for many months without a major clash. Commanders viewed warfare as a brutal game of attrition, where victory belonged to the largest force. Innovation was despised by conservative generals, who firmly believed ancient traditions could not fail. The soldiers themselves were treated like expendable gears in a giant, tragic machine of endless death. But this stagnant tactical doctrine was leading Europe into an endless cycle of extreme misery. If no one dared to change these rigid rules, the devastating 30 Years' War would consume the world. However, far to the freezing north, a brilliant mind was watching this devastating tragedy unfold. He saw through the facade of the giant Tercio blocks, recognizing their fatal lack of speed and pace. A dense block of pikes might stop a frontal cavalry charge, but it was blind and defenseless from its flanks. Furthermore, hiding the musketeers inside the square meant most of their mighty guns could never actually fire. It was a colossal waste of deadly firepower, sacrificing tactical efficiency for defense. The Northern King knew that if he marched his smaller army into this massive engine of ruin, they'd fall. To survive, he had to invent a new philosophy of war, focusing on discipline, speed, and guns. He spent years rigorously training his men in the harsh winter cold, forging them into a weapon. The Swedish army was not a group of wealthy mercenaries, but a highly organized, loyal force. Their uniforms were standardized, their rations were properly managed, and their dedication absolute. This level of professional military discipline was unheard of among the chaotic southern armies. Every single Swedish soldier understood their role perfectly, allowing complex moves in silence. The stage was finally set for the ultimate confrontation between ancient traditions and a modern mind. The Holy Roman Emperor laughed at the Swedish threat, believing his Tercios would crush the invaders. He sent his most ruthless commander, the legendary Count Tilly, to eliminate this uprising. In the bleak autumn of 1630, Gustavus entered the conflict, landing his troops on German soil. The situation looked incredibly grim, as imperial forces had already conquered surrounding lands. How could this tiny kingdom possibly withstand the overwhelming might of Europe's most feared military? Imagine facing an unstoppable army that outnumbers you. Would you surrender or rewrite the rules? Gustavus chose the latter, revealing revolutionary changes that would forever alter human combat. He began by dismantling the gigantic Tercio, transforming his infantry into flexible lines. Instead of standing 30 men deep, the Swedish lines were only 3 to 6 ranks thick, stretching widely. This brilliant structural shift meant that every single musketeer could finally fire their weapon at once. But the king did not stop there. He drastically redesigned the musket, making it much lighter and fast. The clumsy wooden resting forks were completely thrown away, granting his soldiers the ability to move. To maximize their deadly efficiency, he introduced a terrifying new technique called coordinated salvo. Instead of firing one by one, the front 3 ranks of Swedish musketeers would pull the trigger simultaneously. This created a deafening wall of flying lead that could instantly decimate an enemy formation. The psychological impact of receiving hundreds of bullets in a single heartbeat utterly shattered morale. Infantry reform was just one piece. The king next turned his sharp, calculating eyes toward the heavy cannons. Knowing that static bronze cannons were useless in a fluid battle, he created ultra-light field guns. These highly innovative leather cannons were small, mobile, and reinforced with strong copper wire against bursting. They were so remarkably light that a single horse, or even a squad of strong men, could pull them across mud. For the very first time in history, heavy firepower could rapidly march alongside the advancing troops. Gustavus also reorganized his cavalry units, stripping away cowardly tactics for aggressive speed. Previously, horsemen would casually trot toward the enemy, fire an inaccurate pistol, and retreat. The Lion of the North banned this useless practice, ordering his fierce riders to sheath their guns and draw swords. They were commanded to charge at a full gallop, driving their massive horses deep into the enemy lines. The sheer kinetic energy of this thundering cavalry shock tactic was designed to brutally shatter shields. Each element, the rapid muskets, the mobile cannons, and charging swords, was highly lethal in its own right. But Gustavus possessed the absolute genius to deeply weave them into a moving engine of ruin. This revolutionary concept, known today as combined arms, remains the foundation of modern military. As the Swedish king rigorously drilled his disciplined troops, the dark clouds of an epic battle gathered. The aging imperial commander, Count Tilly, marched his undefeated army steadily northward for a clash. Tilly was a proud veteran who strictly used the heavy Tercio formations that had won him countless fights. He fully expected to mercilessly crush the foolish Swedish lines under the sheer weight of his forces. The two fundamentally different military philosophies were now racing toward a mighty collision. The quiet village of Breitenfeld would soon become a devastating crucible, deciding Europe's fate. On September 17, 1631, the morning fog slowly lifted to reveal 2 opposing armies. The imperial army stood like an imposing mountain range of dark steel, a vast expanse of rigid squares. Across the tragic plains, the Swedish forces deployed in surprisingly thin, flexible lines of yellow and blue. Count Tilly arrogantly ordered his heavy siege cannons to heavily bombard the fragile Protestant lines. He firmly anticipated a slow, methodical artillery duel, completely typical of the older wars. But Gustavus immediately unleashed a stunning counterattack that completely shocked the entrenched commanders. The highly mobile Swedish leather cannons swiftly rolled into strategic positions, pouring a hail of iron. Because they were so remarkably easy to reload, the Swedish guns fired roughly 3 times faster than before. The devastating speed and sheer volume of this highly precise fire rapidly tore massive holes in the squares. Seeing his static troops shredded, Count Tilly ordered a massive cavalry charge to crush the rightmost flank. The proud imperial horsemen rode fiercely, expecting to easily break the fragile Swedish infantry lines. Not panicking, the king deployed his disciplined musketeers right alongside his charging heavy cavalry force. As imperial riders approached, the disciplined Swedish lines unleashed a perfectly timed and lethal salvo. The thundering volley ripped through the approaching horses, instantly breaking their aggressive forward momentum. Before the enemy could recover, the fierce Swedish riders drew their swords and swiftly initiated counterattack. The brutal high-speed impact shattered the imperial flank, forcing thousands of men to flee in sheer terror. Despite this massive success, disaster suddenly struck the Allied Saxon forces on the vulnerable left. Crushed by Tilly's brutal main assault, the Green Saxon troops panicked and quickly ran from the tragic battlefield. This rapid collapse completely exposed the entire Swedish left flank to a devastating and lethal attack. The huge imperial Tercios slowly turned around, preparing to quickly crush the trapped Swedish military. In any previous war, such an exposed flank would mean instant devastation and a bitter, tragic defeat. The king had built his thin formations to be highly flexible, allowing incredibly quick shifts in battle. With perfect martial discipline, the Swedish second line rapidly stepped up to block the lethal and incoming threat. Forming a brilliant new front at a sharp defensive angle, they utterly halted the imperial advance. The mobile light cannons were swiftly rotated around, aiming their deadly barrels right at the massive Tercios. The Swedish musketeers fired fierce, devastating volleys straight into the densely packed imperial troops. Since the imperial squares were so incredibly deep and dense, almost every Swedish bullet cleanly hit a mark. The towering blocks of pikemen were completely unable to respond to this long-range and devastating destruction. Old chronicles state Tilly's invincible veterans met a tragic, devastating fate in absolute despair. If you stood in that helpless formation, watching your brothers fall around you, what would you truly feel inside? The devastating carnage continued until the imperial ranks began to waver, dropping their heavy flags. Sensing the crucial breaking point, Gustavus personally led his riders in a massive, glorious mounted charge. Riding his great warhorse, the Lion of the North plunged directly into the tragic, beating heart of battle. The fierce horse impact was truly devastating. The broken imperial troops finally turned and broke away. They threw away their heavy pikes and useless matchlocks, fleeing blindly across the crimson-stained rolling plains. Count Tilly, the proud veteran of countless campaigns, watched in horror as his mighty army crumbled down. His ancient legend was totally shattered forever, buried beneath the rolling tracks of Swedish cannons. The battle was a glorious victory that greatly shocked the grand echoing halls of every royal court. More importantly, it fully proved the brilliant, deadly theory of combined arms on a truly massive scale. The ancient age of trusting only in heavy armor and long pikes came to a sudden and violent end. Shocked generals scrambled to fully study and completely copy the brilliant and modern Swedish battle tactics. Deadly firepower, incredible mobility, and strict discipline became the golden standard of modern war. Sadly, the brilliant king would never live long enough to see the glorious final fruits of his deep labor. 1 year later, at the foggy Battle of Lutzen, the king led another daring, brutal, and fierce horse charge. Blinded by the swirling mist and thick, suffocating smoke, he was sadly separated from his loyal guards. Surrounded by enemies in the dark, mysterious fog, the great lion of the north was violently struck down. His fallen body was tragically found many hours later, totally stripped of his leather coat and jewels. Enraged by the devastating loss of their beloved king, the Swedish troops fought back with a terrifying fury. They won the tragic Battle of Lutzen, but the devastating cost of this glorious victory was fearfully high. The genius who pulled Europe from the Dark Ages fell victim to his own highly violent battle methods. His brave spirit of incredible reform lived on, entirely reshaping every army on the continent. The slow, giant squares of the old Tercios were forever abandoned by all major nations in Europe. They were swiftly replaced by the flexible, thin lines that the great Swedish king boldly pioneered and led. Lighter, extremely reliable guns quickly replaced old matchlocks, giving soldiers far greater deadly power. Cannons were never again seen as a purely static element on the constantly shifting, dangerous battlefield. Mobile cannons quickly became a strict necessity for all ambitious leaders seeking a solid, lasting victory. The brilliant, strategic concept of combined arms tactics remains the absolute core of military schools today. Famous, legendary commanders like Napoleon deeply studied the epic war campaigns of King Gustavus. He conclusively proved that a small, highly disciplined nation could completely overthrow massive empires. The Lion of the North died in the thick fog, but his brilliant light guided the absolute future of modern war. War was no longer a purely chaotic brawl of brute force. It rapidly evolved into a precise science. Every rapid volley and highly tactical charge seen today carries a profound, lasting echo of his genius. History remembers many kings, but very few ever successfully altered the brutal rules of human survival. The Swedish king proved that ancient, static traditions could never defeat the incredible power of innovation. He earned his legendary title in mud and sacrifice, forever remembered as the father of modern warfare. May his epic, unforgettable story remind us that to survive the future, we must dare to rewrite the past. He gave his entire life to modernize human combat, leaving a brilliant, extremely lasting legacy behind. Were his modern tactics a crucial evolution or a reckless royal gamble? Tell us down in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to our amazing channel today for more thrilling, epic historical content.